10. Instagram Trash Talk. On August 9, 2022, deputies in Orange County, Florida responded to a 911 call. A man phoned the police saying he was shot. When deputies arrived at the cul-de-sac in Zellwood, they found a deceased 23-year-old man. His name was DeMonte Sherry, and his body was found riddled with gunshot wounds. The killer was eventually identified as 19-year-old Malik Fisher, who was subsequently arrested and charged with first-degree murder. According to investigators, conflict had arisen between the two men because of a dispute on social media. 8 days before the shooting, DeMonte Sherry was on Instagram Live, talking about some friends of his who'd been killed in Central Florida. That was when Malik Fisher joined the feed, threatening him and bad-mouthing DeMonte's dead friends publicly. What should have ended on Instagram spilled over into real life. On the morning of August 9th, Malik Fisher and his buddies were sitting in a car when DeMonte happened to drive directly in front of them. The unexpected encounter had Malik running up to DeMonte's car with his gun drawn. He pointed it at the driver's window and opened fire, subsequently hitting DeMonte at close range. And all because of some Instagram trash talk gone seriously wrong. In the end, Malik was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, but the case is ongoing. 9. Jessica's Volkswagen. Jessica Beauvais killed an NYPD officer on April 27, 2021. She drove into him with her Volkswagen after going on an irate tirade on Instagram about how useless cops are. She hit the officer so hard with her vehicle that he was thrown 200 feet, 61 meters into the air, knocked straight out of his boots. She was charged with manslaughter and several other offenses in connection to the death of Officer Anastasios Tsakos. Officer Tsakos was directing traffic away from a deadly crash that had just happened on the Long Island Expressway in Queens. It was early on a Tuesday morning, and the day was already off to a bad start. But then came Jessica hurtling toward multiple officers in her maroon Volkswagen. The other cops managed to get out of the way, but Tsakos was struck and thrown onto the grassy median. The veteran of 14 years on the force died shortly after from massive head injuries at the New York Presbyterian Hospital. As that was happening, 32-year-old Jessica fled the scene. She committed a hit and run and tried to escape before anyone could track her down. But seeing as she ran over a cop, she was captured rather quickly afterward. Officers found Jessica's blood alcohol level to be over double the legal limit when she was tested 2 hours after the crash. And before the incident, she'd posted a live stream on Facebook of approximately 1 hour and 51 minutes. In the recording, she could be seen shooting tequila shots and bad-mouthing the police. Suffice to say, trash-talking the cops really hasn't helped her case after running over one. 8. Justine's tweet. Justine Sacco was public enemy number 1 in 2013, after becoming one of the first people to gain infamy by bad-mouthing on Twitter. Justine made a tweet that resulted in her getting fired from her job as Senior Director of Corporate Communications at IAC, an internet services company. She also became a public pariah after the fact, and her life was left in shambles. Justine was born in 1983, and she studied at Toole University, where she graduated with a bachelor's degree in philosophy. Other than that, not a whole lot is known about her. Ever since her famous tweet ruined her life, she's remained out of the spotlight and largely off social media. In December of 2013, Justine got on a plane destined for South Africa. Before she took off, she tweeted, "Going to Africa. Hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white." She likely thought it was hilarious, but nobody else found it funny. Her flight was 11 hours, and by the time she landed, the world was already outraged. The tweet became the #1 trending topic in the world while Justine was still napping on the airplane. By the time she got to South Africa, her life had changed forever. Even though Justine made a public apology and insisted the tweet had been satire, not literal, she was still fired. And although her life was ruined at first, her LinkedIn profile seems to suggest she's since recovered. She's been the VP of Communications for Match Group since 2020. But there's still many people who refer to Justine Sacco as the very first casualty of cancel culture. 7. The League of Legends terrorist. In 2013, Justin Carter from Texas had a bad match of League of Legends, a popular video game, and started trash-talking his opponents. Not only did Justin badmouth the people he was in a match with, he also took to Facebook and started ranting about some pretty crazy things. He made some broad threats about some educational institutions, which resulted in him being arrested by the police. He was a 19-year-old kid who took out his anger from a video game by saying ridiculous things on Facebook, earning him a felony terrorist threat charge. Justin was arrested in San Antonio at his place of work and was held on a $250,000 bond. During his initial few months in the Comal County Jail, he was allegedly assaulted and beaten to a severe degree. This was all despite the fact that Justin didn't own any weapons, and he'd never indicated he had terroristic thoughts. He did, however, have a long history of crude and dark humor on Facebook. Justin's case was dragged through the court system for 5 years before it was finally put behind him in 2018, when he agreed to plead guilty to a Class A misdemeanor so he could get on with his life. 6. Tired of the trash talk. A man in Las Vegas was recently facing an open murder charge after he ran over a homeless man. David Welch was arrested in the summer of 2021 after he killed Keith Michael Edwards in a parking lot. According to the police, the incident happened at an AutoZone near Las Vegas Boulevard North. David had gone to check on his girlfriend's daughter, who happened to be homeless and living in the area. When he drove into the parking lot, he saw the homeless man there. The pair already had a history, and there was some bad blood between them. And as David was trying to check on his girlfriend's daughter, Keith stood there and trash-talked him. He was insulting him so incessantly that David got sick of it. He then got back in his car and drove the homeless man over. David even thought about his choices before going through with it. He got into his car, backed out of the parking spot, and then paused for a few seconds while staring at Keith through the windshield. In the end, though, he made his decision and hit the gas, running the homeless man over, ultimately ending his life. 5. Bad roommates. On January 5th, 2023, police officers were dispatched to an apartment in Leominster, Massachusetts, because a pair of roommates had gotten into a fight. When the police arrived on the scene, one of the roommates was waiting at the door. She told the cops that her roomie, a woman named Rose Baez, had already fled. The apartment's resident, who is still there, Jen Sylvia, was visibly injured while talking to the officers, with a cut to her face from where Rose had bashed her head against the floor. Jen and Rose weren't good roommates. In fact, Rose was moving out that same day. As she packed her belongings, she still fought and argued with Jen. At one point, Jen was on the phone with her family members who were bad-mouthing Rose while the woman was still in earshot. Jen's family knew about the situation and were happy that Rose was moving out. But if they'd just waited a few minutes to do their trash talking, things might have turned out a bit better. Instead, Rose was thrown into a fit of rage. She pushed Jen on the floor, punched her in the face, and then pounded her head against the ground. Then she ran away when she realized the cops were on their way. Running away never really solves the problem, though, and the police soon caught up with her. She was charged with assault and battery, but was released shortly after on a bail of just $40. 4. Facebook drama. A sheriff's deputy abused his power by having his ex-wife arrested in January of 2015, all because he got upset about some bad-mouthing that she was doing on Facebook. This was a clear case of petty social media drama pushed to its limits. Ann King posted a Facebook status saying that she was frustrated with her ex, Corey King, because he refused to drop off medication for their kids when he went to work. At the time, everyone in her household was sick with the flu, But Corey had better things to do than drop off medicine for his family. The status update soon turned into a free-for-all. Anne's friends started chiming in, and the whole thing became a vicious attack. It was obvious what Anne's friends thought of Corey. When he realized people were trash-talking him on the internet, Corey became extremely angry. He ordered Anne to take the post down, but she refused. So he filed an incident report and requested that his ex-wife be arrested for making derogatory statements against him. The next day, a Washington County court issued arrest warrants for Anne King and her friend Susan Hines, who'd commented on the post. Both women were charged with criminal defamation of character and were forced to post $1,000 bails. But luckily, after the hearing, the judge dropped the case because it was unfounded. Anne then filed a lawsuit against the county and the sheriff's office. And in 2019, she was awarded $100,000. When she initially filed the lawsuit, her friend Susan was in on it too. But before it was ever resolved, Susan backed out because she didn't want to cause friction in the community. 3. Lindsey Stone. In 2012, the internet shamed Lindsey Stone into a black pit of misery after she posted a photo on Facebook of her joking around at a war memorial. If there's one place you shouldn't be goofing off, it's almost definitely a war memorial. She had the picture snapped of her at the Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia. The cemetery has a sign asking for silence and respect, and in the photo, Lindsey posed in front of the sign, pretending to shout and flipping off all the dead people in the ground. The post went viral, and Lindsey found herself on the end of a ceaseless assault of anger and hate. She was called all kinds of names by war veterans and by the general community. She even lost her job as a health charity worker. But what could have possibly motivated her to take such an awful photo? Lindsey said in her defense that she and a friend had a long-running joke. Each of them would photograph themselves next to a sign doing the opposite of what the sign said. She wasn't trying to disrespect war veterans, she was just posing for a joke. Nobody was even supposed to see the photo. But Lindsey didn't understand how privacy settings on Facebook worked. It was her technological ignorance that resulted in everyone in America seeing her flip the bird to a cemetery full of war heroes. 2. The Parrot Witness. In 2015, a woman in Michigan was found guilty of shooting her husband 5 times. And the key witness in the case was a bad-mouthing parrot. Glenna Durham shot her husband Martin in full view of their pet parrot, an African gray who went by the name of Bud. Like most parrots, Bud was able to mimic sounds that it heard in its environment. Specifically, it could imitate things that people said to it, anything from bad words to pleas for help. After the brutal slaying of Martin, when the police were investigating, the parrot kept repeating the same phrase. It said, "Don't effing shoot," over and over again. Even more convincing was that the parrot said it in Martin's voice. Clearly, it was the last thing the parrot heard before Martin was shot 5 times. The parrot wasn't used in the court proceedings, even though it was extremely convincing. In the end, the jury didn't need the parrot to find Glenna Durham guilty of first-degree murder. She was subsequently sentenced to life behind bars for the crime. 1. Bad-mouthing the resort. An American man was in Thailand on vacation in 2020 when he decided to badmouth a hotel that he was staying at. Wesley Barnes wasn't necessarily trash-talking for the sake of it. He was just trying to leave a few negative reviews. He posted several scathing reviews of the Seaview Resort, with one even accusing them of modern slavery. He assumed that nothing would come of his trash talk and that he would simply write his review bashing the resort and go on with his holiday. Instead, Wesley was detained by Thai authorities and charged under extremely strict anti-defamation laws. What a lot of people don't realize when taking vacations is that many countries have laws making it more or less illegal to badmouth certain organizations or people. In Thailand, you absolutely cannot defame anyone. You can try, but you might wind up arrested. However, there might be a bit more to the story than meets the eye. According to the resort, Wesley wasn't a very good customer. Despite it being against the rules, he brought his own bottle of alcohol to the resort restaurant. And when the staff tried to tell him that he couldn't drink his own booze, Wesley caused a scene. When he left, he wrote mean reviews of the property, resulting in the hotel suing him for defamation. The resort claimed his views were fabricated and malicious in nature. Wesley almost found himself behind bars, but luckily for him, the story went viral and the resort faced even worse publicity as a result. The reviews may have been one thing, but now the resort was in the news for having its guests arrested. After making a deal with the property, Wesley was released and allowed to go about his business. All he had to do was write a series of apologies to foreign media organizations, the hotel itself, and Thailand's tourism authority. Would you rather have someone bad-mouthing you online or straight to your face? Let us know in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.